Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning and Happy New Year's Eve. I would say Happy New Year's, but we're still a little way off there, okay? But we are here this morning, so welcome back for another episode of Faith in Our Hometown. We're glad you're watching us on a Sunday morning and decided to join us. My guest this morning is Marianne Mitz. Marianne is in the Department of Kinesiology at Missouri Southern, so welcome, Marianne. We're going to be talking a little bit this morning about that reality that everybody at New Year's time wants to make resolutions. Everybody wants to make changes. Everybody's going to make all these promises. And it's really kind of hard to do so. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about what's required in change and how that works for us as people who are determined, people who want to make changes in our lives, and maybe even perhaps as people of faith. So we're going to watch this Mercy Minute, and then we're going to be back to talk about change in the new year. So stick around, don't go away.
The different bariatric surgical options here at Mercy Joplin includes laparoscopic Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy, and laparoscopic lap band placement. In addition, we also offer revisional laparoscopic surgeries for those patients that have had previous bariatric procedures but have had failures. The surgical procedure of choice will vary with different individuals, and so that's why our team will work with the patient on an individual basis to determine which procedure is the best fit for them. All three of the bariatric procedures that we offer here at Mercy Joplin have a long track record of proven safety and efficacy. The best procedure for the individual has to be a decision to be decided between the patient and the physician.
So welcome back. Again, my guest this morning, Marianne Mitz from the Department of Kinesiology at Missouri Southern. So welcome back, Marianne. Marianne's been on the guest on our show before. We've talked a little bit about sports and coaching and all those things, okay? And this morning we're going to talk a little bit about change in the new year. You know, this is the time of year that everybody makes those resolutions. Why do people fail in their resolutions?
Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, that January 1st date sets us all up to fail because it's like starting everything on a Monday. You know, why don't we start changes on a Wednesday afternoon? But we tend to focus on that Monday. And the same way with the new year. We focus on January 1st. We put all our eggs in one basket. And whenever we go through a change, we have to prepare to change. Change is not a linear equation where we start one day and 90 days later the change has occurred without any ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys and obstacles, etc. So really, the way we look at January 1st for most people, like myself, is that's the first try at many to actually start making that change.
Yeah, I always like to say God doesn't follow a calendar anyway, so what difference does it make? But you know, a lot of people make these resolutions, and I think it's a great thing to want to improve ourselves. I think it's a great thing to want to take the next step in life or in faith or in being a better person. I think that's all wonderful. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that, you know, that it's just like, well, why wait for New Year's Eve? If we were doing this show in June, why wouldn't we start doing that in June rather than doing it in, you know, January the 1st, like it's some arbitrary or magic, you know, line in the sand?
Well, what I do love about January 1st is it is refreshing because it's a new beginning. It's new life, and we can pull that into faith very, very easily. It gives people hope that no matter what happened throughout that year, January 1st is a new start. It's a time that you can use that next year to change those things that, you know, just maybe make you a better version of yourself. And so there's a lot of promise in January 1st. There's a lot of promise, but sometimes we set ourselves up to get disappointed because we're expecting that fix to stay tuned from January 1st on. And usually it takes most people at least 5 times to start a change. And so what tends to happen just with human nature is we tend to fail, and then we start beating ourselves up, and we don't think we can do it, and we start doubting ourselves, and we start to get upset, and then all of a sudden, sometimes we just quit. And usually that change is right around the corner, and it's about to really snap us in that right direction. But it's hard. Change is hard, and some people like it. I hate it, but it's hard, and it doesn't matter if you're prepared for it or if you even know that you need to change. And I think that's where it starts, is reflecting on your year and trying to figure out where a person needs to change and the direction you need to head to do that.
Yeah, I've often said that most people really don't want change, because it is going to mean that they can't stay the way that they were. And I think that the tendency for all of us is it's so easy for us to stay stuck in our patterns and those kinds of things. Growth is even harder than change, and growth hurts, Change might make us a little bit more uncomfortable, but growth really hurts. And so to move from one spot to another, even St. Paul said, why is it that the good that I want to do, can't seem to be able to get done, and yet the things that I try to avoid are the things that always get me. So this is an age-old story. It's not new for anybody. It's not new for us, to want to make those changes or to do those things. So how do we make changes? How do we do that? And I'm asking you this now as a learned assistant professor of kinesiology. What have you learned, and what do we teach our students about change and how to do those things?
Well, you have to practice changing.
That was probably the coach in her too, not just the kinesiology professor, but the former coach. But yeah.
And what I mean by that is, at the beginning of the semester in our Lifetime Wellness class, I usually give my students I let them choose a simple change, just something simple that they could try for about a week. And it's usually something as simple as, I'd like to drink 1 more bottled water a day, or I'd like to stop biting my fingernails, or I would like to reduce the amount of fast food that I'm eating this week to only 3 times. I mean, just something, not earth-shattering, but just something simple, so that they know and understand what it takes to actually go through that change. It takes preparation. It takes the ability to analyze your day and realize what triggers certain behaviors. What triggers me to pull into McDonald's is the fact that I just drive by it. So I may need to drive in an opposite direction from Andy's or a McDonald's because I just want to pull in there.
Andy's to McDonald's?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go all the way down Range Line. But that's a trigger for me. Driving in the car to drink a soda, just triggers. I want them to kind of start getting an idea of what's triggering those behaviors, and then what obstacles are standing in their way to change. And sometimes it's other people. My mother's a great example. I go home, she offers me a donut, I say, "No, Mom," and she says, "Oh, 1 won't hurt you." Well, if she says that 25 times, and that's the way she shows love, and I keep taking those donuts, well, that's an obstacle for me, and I can't say no. So that's tough. That's an obstacle. So helping them understand all the things that go involved in change, and that they can still get something out of it if they were not perfect during that week. Most people, when they slip up, some people just choose to stop. And what we have to do is we have to forgive ourselves and say, okay, I had that soda, big deal. Now I need to move on. And look how much I reduced my soda intake from 8 in a week to, wow, I only had 3. And so that's improvement. And you are your better self by just making those small changes.
Yeah. And the challenge is for us not to give up, because I think, again, this New Year's, I don't want, when we do the show on, the beginning of February, I don't want everybody to say, I've already tossed all those, intentions to improve my life or to improve myself or to be better or more selfless or whatever it is. I want people to toss those things out the window. I want them to be able to say, okay, I have made progress between January 1st and February 1st.
Sure. Absolutely. And the more specific we are with our goals, goals that are very specific and measurable. So, for instance, for myself, last year, it was the 3 H's. I wanted to be healthier, I wanted to be happier, and I wanted to be holier. Well, that sounds great in general terms, but it was breaking that down and how am I going to be holier? And for me, it was my prayer life. Just my one-on-one prayer life, my conversations with God. Well, what does that look like that's going to fit into my life? It may not look like what it's going to look like in your life, etc. And so just taking those big entities and then breaking them down with smaller goals and a plan of action of what is my holiness going to look like, what is my health going to look like, and what dimensions am I working on in there. And then, obviously, you know, when I'm talking about my happiness, how do I pull from that and make sure that I'm being the happiest person that I could possibly be?
Yeah. And so even the learned professor has to make the plan. Even the learned professor has to do those things. You know, it's just like, and I'm going to tell you that, like, you know, one of the things that I always laugh about priests is, you know, we're our own worst enemies, you know, so, you know, it's not an unreal question for you to ask the priest, you know, if he's unhappy with his prayer life, if he really is praying. Just saying, you know, we get a lot done, and like I say, I always just, and I admit this all the time to the people I preach to, is like, there's some days when, you know, I get a lot done for the Lord. I get a lot of work done for Him. But have I really ever talked to Him since I started out that morning? And sometimes it's late at night, and it's just like, oh, Lord, I haven't spoken to you, like, you know, all day long while some of this was happening because I was too busy being about these things rather than just being with you. And that's a challenge. And all of us have them. It's not, you know, it's not endemic to priests. It's not endemic to, you know, teachers. It's not endemic to anyone. It's just that we're all pretty much the same when it comes to the fact that we're our own biggest challenges. And how do we overcome those challenges?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, if we are going to help everybody to make you know, these changes in their lives, what do we have to do in order to be able to stick with it? What kind of a methodology would you suggest?
Well, you know, change can be positive too. So when we're talking about change, you know, a person getting married, that's change, and that's very positive. Having a child is change. So I don't want to give the perception that we always have to change something negative about ourselves. There could be something that's changing in one's life that's creating the change naturally. And so whether the change is something very positive like getting married or a change in someone's physical or spiritual life, everyone goes through a change cycle. And it wasn't until I was midway through my 30s that I realized that there is this cycle that everybody goes through. And it's basically 7 stages. And the first is doubt. Anytime there's a change, that I ask this in my classes all the time, who of you guys that are about to get married or have been married, what was the one thing you feared losing? And they always say, my freedom. And so then they doubt, is it time for me to get married? And then there's discomfort, and however that discomfort shows itself. And what's really, really interesting, that I'd love to talk about after the break, is the fact that if we don't help people get over what is called the danger zone, then what they do is they repeat 1, 2, and 3, and they go back to doubt, a loss, doubt, and discomfort. And when people stay there, that's why they quit things on marriages, etc.
Well, here we are. We're going to be back after a quick break, so don't go away. We are going to talk a little bit more about these 7 phases and what we can do to get people past that danger zone. So stick around. We'll be right back.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
So, thank you for sticking with us this morning. Again, my guest has been Marianne Mitz, who's in the kinesiology department at Missouri Southern, a good friend of mine, and we've been talking a little bit about change in this new year. Now, Marianne, right before the break, we were talking about the 7 aspects of, you know, what challenge us with change and what we've got to go through. So let's look at that first, and then you mentioned getting everybody through the danger zone. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, well, the cycles again start with loss, doubt, and discomfort. And then when things get a little bit more positive with change as time passes, then we go through a discovery, an understanding, and an integration. Now, each person, because we're all different, may spend a different amount of time in each change. So somebody
these
could
are not
Right.
cut and dried. They're not easily so you will be 2 weeks in this and then you're on to this. No, it's not like that. Human beings are a little bit messier than math. So yeah.
Right. So you may fly through loss and doubt in a week, where it may take me 6 months, or it may take me a year. And some people just never get through those first 3. I always wondered why, people quit things, being in sports, but it doesn't matter. I can look at, sometimes marriages, I can look at sports teams, school, jobs. Why do people quit? And anytime you're caught and stuck in loss, doubt, and discomfort, and you keep repeating that cycle, I think it becomes miserable, unbearable, And so
We've all been there.
So that danger zone is that danger zone where we push through that discomfort, the tears, the anger, all of that, and we push through to where it is this more of a discovery that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and then that leads to understanding that, man, I can't imagine anything better than being married. And then integration is that guy that said, oh my goodness, I lost all my freedom, now says, I can't imagine coming home and being alone.
Yeah.
Because now I have 3 kids running around. And so this whole stage may take quite a bit of time. Now that danger zone's really interesting, and I always use the analogy of someone going away to school for the first time. It's always a great one. And so you have someone who's away from home and they get homesick. And so typically what happens is universities are very strategic in planning a lot of activities those first 6 weeks.
Exactly.
And so usually they're trying to get those students to be engaged in the campus community.
Right.
What then tends to happen is, as we go through the rest of the semester, Sally may call home and say, Mom, I'm homesick, I want to come home. And some moms or dads could say, Sally, I'm going to come get you right now. You just pack your things up. I want you to be happy. I'm going to come get you. Some parents would say, no, you're going to stay till semester. And what they're doing is they're doing their child a favor, because they're giving them time to get through those 3 stages.
Right.
Not enough time has occurred to help them get through that.
Right.
My dad would always say, no, you're staying until the end of the year. He didn't know anything about the change cycle, but he did know that after enough time passed, maybe I would see all the benefits and I wouldn't want to leave. And so I think that's critical. So mom or dad says one thing, and then the other parent gets on the phone and says, no, you're staying here. You're staying at Missouri Southern. You are not coming home at Christmas. And the child is like, you don't love me, you don't care about me, you don't want me to be happy. But they're really doing that child a favor, because what is happening is they're giving that change cycle time. And I'm not saying that transferring is not sometimes a good decision, but what I am saying is, as we get educated about change, that's really important that you have to be pushed through that change cycle. That change cycle, we don't, coax people through it, because they'll never get through it. You need those people in your life to kind of push you through in a gentle way and say, nope, over here is where you're really going to see the light.
Yeah. It's interesting. Sometimes I wind up talking to people who get so frustrated with their spiritual life and the changes they want to make their spiritual life. And it's like, I'm never going to be good at this. I'm just going to quit. I'm just like, well, I guess that's an option, but maybe you just shouldn't waste the energy kicking yourself and just go at it again. Mm-hmm. Stop wasting all the energy of trying to tuck yourself into how horrible you are, and just get on with it. So each time you catch yourself, fine, get up, shake it all off, and start over again. Start again.
Right.
Because I think that when we have that repetition of starting over and over and over again, actually we're growing through a lot of what we need to grow through anyway. Mm-hmm. Do I really think that I'm ever going to be able to live a sin-free life?
Did you say that
No.
on TV?
I just said that on TV, that I will never be able to probably live a sin-free life.
Right.
It's just impossible for any of us.
Mm-hmm.
But do I think I'm better at some of it than I was 30 years ago? Oh, you bet. you know, because I had more practice. I've pushed through some of this, and I've learned a few things through the years. And some of those things are easier at 56 than they were at 25, you know? And so sometimes my students will look at me and they'll say, well, how did you know that was going to happen with me? And I'm like, been there, done that. You know, you just had to stay patient with it until you came to a new understanding or you came to a new place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How does that happen? Yeah. So how do we coach them up? How do we coach them up to all of our listeners out there? How are we going to coach them up to make this, whatever changes that they want to make in this new year?
Sure. Well, I think the first, I would challenge the listeners to not start on January 1st. Start on the 3rd. Start on the 6th. There's no magical date to that first day. Most of us coming off the holidays, we're not ready to make a change. I mean, we're coming down off, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we're just not ready, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so just letting the new year come in, getting our bearings, get back to work, do all of the things that we need to do, and then start that change. When we change and things don't go quite as well as we'd like, just forgive ourselves and move on. Understand the triggers and the obstacles that come into those, and really knowing yourself better. Sometimes we're afraid to know who we really are. And when we truly get to understand who we really are, that's when we can truly start to change. And so I think that helps as well. And then set little goals. Maybe it's a 30-day goal. It takes 30 days to create a habit, a bad one or a good one. So you have to give it at least 30 days, and really the standard is 90. So we're talking 3 months before
Who makes this stuff up? I just want to know. I'm just going to say.
You can always say research says.
Research says, okay. But I mean, I think there's some wisdom to it, even if it's only colloquial wisdom, even if there really is research. Okay, just checking to make sure. But even if the research didn't show it, I think colloquially, I know that it takes a while to get into something. If we're going to do something, it takes us a while, and and sometimes we may have to again start over many, many times. But if I keep going back to it, keep going back to it, usually I'm better at the end of a month of trying to do something than I was at the very beginning.
Right, and I think one of the things is just pick one change. If I picked 5 things that I want to change, that gets a little harder for me. So pick one change and make it simple at first, and then add on to it. And I think that helps with the success rate of making any change.
Well, I didn't realize I was doing this when I made a change a few months ago, because back in the summer, I just decided it'd be a good time for me to take one more run at maybe drinking a little less artificial sweeteners, especially in my sodas and things, because I've been drinking diet soda since I was a kid, because they didn't want me to have all the sugar and all those things. But everything I read about artificial sweeteners is not good. So I thought, okay, this summer I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it. So there was no specific start date. There was no specific time frame. I didn't say I'm going cold turkey. I just said I'm going to see whether or not I can't wean myself off of diet soda. And just see if I can do it. And I got to say, things have gone well.
Great.
I don't, but I mean, was it perfect? Did I go cold turkey? And no. But I mean, I slowly reduced and then, pretty much eliminated. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm never going to have one ever again. But what I am going to say is that probably I'm, better off at having slowly weaned myself off of what was, easily at least a couple a day, or especially in the evening or whatever. I'm just drinking other things now, and I've made that change. Right. So.
Right,
and I bet that if the research is right, then I should be better off.
That's right, and I bet that soda now tastes different to you than it did.
Well, if I'm not drinking it, how am I going to know?
Well, when you do mess up maybe one time and you have it, it tastes different, and it probably doesn't taste.
Get behind me, you temptress.
It doesn't taste as tasty as it once did, because there's not that addiction.
Yeah.
So good for you.
I'm just saying those are little things. I mean, and again, I didn't realize that I wasn't taking any advice to do that at that point in time. But I'm glad I didn't have a start date. I'm glad I didn't get frustrated with it. I'm glad that I I just looked at it in a conceptual thing, and and just did it that way. So good for me.
Yeah,
You
proud
know?
of you.
Well, again, we're talking about how we do some things in the change cycle and how we might be able to make some of those changes for the new year. So if we're going to give one little grand little nugget of advice before we take our next break, what would you tell everybody?
I would just say that when you set your goals, that they need to be specific. Losing weight is not specific, where a lot of people would think it is. But how many pounds are you going to lose is specific. Is that measurable? Sure, you can step on a scale. Is it attainable? Well, you can only gain or lose about 2 pounds in a week. So is it attainable and realistic? And then is it timely? Always set an end date. It's not so much that you set a beginning date, but set an end date specifically to the day and the date and the time. And then you have a SMART goal.
There you go. All right, well, we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute, and don't go away.
The SANE program, or Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner program, is a program established to provide a coordinated, specialized care to patients or women or men who've been the victim of sexual assault.
The SANE program is really designed to be a collaborative community response to sexual assault.
It's really important to make sure that it's not just the report or the forensic, but they get all of the testing that might be needed for their health.
It's also important to know that you don't need to know if you want to press charges or not. We don't get law enforcement involved unless you request it.
I just want to express to the victim that it is never your fault. You always have the right to say no, and that it's your body. So if you say yes one time, it doesn't mean every time.
I think it's important that sexual assault victims remember they've been victims of a crime, and crime victims do not pay for those services.
Well, again, Happy New Year's Eve. I hope that your New Year's is wonderful in every possible way that you hope for and pray for. If you're going to make some changes in the new year, we talked a little bit about some of the things that we might do in order to make those changes a little bit more effective, where we don't get so frustrated and just quit. So let's maybe not pick a start date that's the 1st of January, but maybe just some day during the week that we might start. And let's not get frustrated with the goals. Let's go ahead and try to see what we can do. Other than that, I would just say, since it is New Year's Eve, please do me a favor and take every bit of good care of yourself that you would that your mom or your grandma take care of you, okay? Which means don't go out and do anything stupid. If you are going to imbibe this evening, please make sure that you're doing it safely and not to excess, and that you got somebody else to drive you around, because we really want the new year to start well for everyone, and we want everyone to be safe. So God bless. Have a happy new year. My thanks to Marianne for joining me this morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown. Join us again next week.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.